Paris Peace Conference and Treaty of Versailles.
Silence, s'il vous plaît.
Please.
Faites entrer les Allemands. Die Stunde der Abrechnung ist da.
In the aftermath of the devastating First World War, world leaders gathered to shape a new future for Europe and the world. The Paris Peace Conference, held from January 18, 1919 to January 21, 1920, was one of the most significant events of the 20th century. Nearly 30 nations participated, but the major powers, Germany and its allies in the Central Powers, were notably excluded from these peace talks. The main goal of the conference was clear: to establish peace after a global conflict that have left millions dead and nations in ruin. The stage was set in Paris, France, where the world leaders met to discuss how the aftermath of the war will be managed and to prevent future global conflicts. The conference was dominated by the Big Four representatives from four major powers: the United Kingdom, France, the United States, and Italy. These four nations had the most significant influence on the peace term and were the driving force behind the creation of the Treaty of Versailles. At the forefront of these discussions were four key figures. From Britain, Prime Minister David Lloyd George. From Italy, Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando. From France, Prime Minister George Clemenceau. And from the United States, President Woodrow Wilson. Together, they will decide the fate of Europe and the world in years to come. On June 28, 1919, after months of discussions and negotiation, the Treaty of Versailles was signed in the magnificent Palace of Versailles in France. This treaty officially ended World War I and imposed severe penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, military restriction, and hefty reparation. The goal was to ensure that Germany would not be able to wage another war. Germany lost significant land after the war. Regions like Alsace and Lorraine were returned to France, and parts of its territory were ceded to Belgium, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. The treaty also took away Germany's overseas colony and reduced its military to a fraction of its former strength. In addition to the loss of land and military restrictions, Germany was forced to pay reparations, billions of gold marks to be exact. These reparations were meant to compensate the Allied powers for the devastations caused by the war. Along with the heavy economic burden, Germany also had to endure a demilitarized zone between it and France, which was seen as a necessary buffer to prevent future hostilities. Why didn't the United States sign the Treaty of Versailles? The answer lies in the American Senate, which rejected the treaty twice, in 1919 and 1920. Instead of signing the Treaty of Versailles, the United States signed a separate peace agreement with Germany called the Treaty of Berlin in 1921. This treaty gave the US the same rights and privileges as the Versailles treaties, but notably did not mention the League of Nations. This was significant because the US never joined the League, an international organization aimed at resolving disputes and preventing future wars. The League of Nations was one of President Woodrow Wilson's most important ideas. He had promoted it as part of his 14-point plan, which he believed would create a just and lasting peace. Unfortunately, despite Wilson's efforts, the United States did not join the League of Nations. Many Americans, including members of Congress, feared that joining the League would drag the country into European politics and limit its freedom of actions. The League of Nations would struggle to maintain peace in the following years. The absence of the United States, a major global power, left the League weak and inefficient. Ultimately, the League of Nations was disbanded on April 19, 1946, after its failure to prevent the outbreak of World War II. The Treaty of Versailles was just one of several major peace settlements to come out of the Paris Peace Conference. One of the most significant was the Treaty of Saint-Germain, signed on September 10, 1919. This treaty dissolved the Austro-Hungarian Empire, creating new nations and dramatically redrawing the map of Europe. Austria, reduced to landlocked country, lost much of its territory, including Bohemia and Moravia, to Czechoslovakia, and parts of its land to Italy, Poland, and Romania. Austria's military was also restricted, and it was forbidden from uniting with Germany. The peace settlements following World War I were meant to create stability and prevent future war, but the harsh terms imposed on the defeated nations, particularly Germany, sowed the seed of resentment and unrest. These tensions would eventually lead to the outbreak of World War II just 2 decades later. The Paris Peace Conference reshaped the world, creating new borders and new nations, but its legacy is complicated. While it brought an official end to the First World War, the peace settlements failed to provide lasting stability, and the world will soon find itself embroiled in another global conflict. The lessons learned from this conference will have a lasting impact on how the world approaches peace and diplomacy in the future. This was the story of the Paris Peace Conference, a turning point in history that shaped the world we know today.